I was just playing with some applique type stitches or blanket stitches that are on the Pfaff Ambition 1.0 sewing machine. There's actually quite a few, but when you want to actually turn to a decorative stitch that is just a satin stitch to go around the raw edges so you don't have to worry about them fraying out, then you're looking for some of your stitches that are zigzag related. Now, of course, there are some fabulous stitches over here in the satin stitch area that could also be a applique stitch. So don't just limit yourself to just like one stitch for applique. There are so many different choices, and that's why we always recommend that you stitch out all your decorative stitches so you can see what's in this machine. So I was playing around with our stitch 4, 5, and 6. So stitch 4 is just your standard zigzag, which can be manipulated in width and length, so you can get it nice and close together. Stitch 5 is when the needle position is moved all the way. Let's go ahead and pick stitch 5. It will move the zigzag all the way to the far left or right needle position just by its name. So then you can work like near the edge of your foot. And by the way, if you use an open toe foot, that would be purchased separately from your Pfaff store, but it's a lot easier to follow when you can see where you're going versus just looking through a standard foot with a little plastic in the front. Trust me. But if you want it to be on the right or left, that's where mirror image is adjusted. And you can adjust the length to be much closer, and you can get it not all the way down to a satin stitch because it stops at 2, but you can work with the zigzag in the left or right needle position. So my favorite is actually stitch number 6, where that is actually pre-programmed with the close together satin stitch, stitch 1. Now it doesn't know which thickness of thread I have on, so you do have that ability to either close it up a little bit more or open it if it's a thicker thread. So you do need to pick and play with your settings. It also starts at 6 millimeters wide, which by the way is really, really wide. You can see based on how wide that stitch is. So I would say that my favorite is somewhere in the 3 to 3.5 range. And then I'm working on just getting the satin stitch to be nice and closed together as I'm going around my fabric here. So I'm going to shorten the stitch length just a little bit. And then also stopping with the needle in the down position. That way you can pivot when you're on the outside of the fabric you're going around. Now I do have some little bit of variegated thread in here, kind of fun. It also recommends foot 2A and stabilizer. And notice the IDT is not showing on the machine, so make sure it's not engaged. Shouldn't be able to engage it with this foot, but I have seen people try to do it and, well, it just does not work well. So as you're working around, you do have a pretty stitch that is encasing the raw edge of your fabric. So let me show you what I have here. And oh, how fun is that with variegated thread? But seeing how it's all the way encased, that way if I go to wash this, it's not going to unravel. That is the difference between if I'm stitching just along a raw edge with a decorative stitch that doesn't contain all those edges, where this one does. So a satin stitch is something you should probably master in your lifetime and work on learning how to turn corners and curves and inside points along the way. Treat yourself to that open toe foot I recommended. It really will make this job a lot easier.